It's the most pathetic statement I've ever seen that Formula One or whoever put that statement out, because it makes us all look like fools. None of us believe that. Bob's absolutely right. We love this sport. We love everything about it. And those statements don't ring true. Because if they did ring true, what are Haas doing there? They came fifth in their second season. And sure, they've had a bad time of it. But the customer teams have always gone well. They may as well have written a statement that says, oh, dear Andretti, we don't really like you, but we like GM. So could we just hold this until 28 and then we'll have GM in Formula One? That's really what.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
It took almost a full year, almost to the day, for FOM to reject Andretti's bid to bring an 11th team to Formula One, because it was October 2nd, 2023, a year ago this past Friday, that the FIA formally invited all the applicants to join the World Championship in 25 or 26. And right before this anniversary, FOM delivers the news that most F1 fans, based on what I'm seeing, not just here in the U.S., but around the world, did not want to hear. They rejected the bid from Andretti Global to enter Formula One. And when this happened, I just reacted viscerally. I was, to say I was surprised, I wasn't. But when it actually happened, I just couldn't believe it. And I was probably more upset than I've been about Formula One in a long time, if ever. And I'm really still having a hard time admitting this is a done deal. And Bob, I'm going to start with you, because we were texting and you seemed to be just about as upset as I was.
Well, initially I was upset, but not all that much. I mean, it's their championship. They have their reasons about who gets in and who doesn't. But when FOM released this absolutely inane document explaining their reasons for declining the entry, that's what really blew my head off. I've got the document here. It's just crazy. I'll run through a couple of things. With a 2025, last year, the current regulatory cycle, and then a 2026 new engines. That means a new entrant is going to have to build a new car for 2025 and then another new car for 2026. Well, everybody else is going to do that too. So who are you to judge whether or not, if they're willing to do it, let them do it. You've already got their $200 million or whatever you're going to wind up costing them. What else? We can't have them coming in with a customer power unit. That endangers the intellectual property of the existing, OEMs in the series. Well, how is that different from the 6 customer teams currently on the grid? Although they did note later on, well, if Cadillac comes back in 2026, we'd look much more kindly on that. Oh, please. They're not going to be competitive. How do you know that? Mm-hmm. They've got Chester, a Formula One veteran technical director with a great resume. He's got, he's lining up his technical team. They got a car in the wind tunnel, for crying out loud. That's never going to see the light of day on a racetrack in a competition, but they're going to be testing the dog meal out of it to learn everything they can, as any good applicant team would do, in order to be on the grid with as much knowledge as they can. Coming to the sport with a new power unit manufacturer is a huge challenge. Major automotive manufacturers have struggled in the past, and it can take years for a manufacturer to in order to become competitive. Well, why make them wait until 2026? Put in there now so they can be competitive by 2026. And then it says GM have the resources and credibility to be more than capable of attempting this challenge, but success is not assured. What is sport if it's not? Success is not assured.
Jonathan, I see your face. And
I mean, I'm glad Bob's got me riled up. It's the most pathetic statement I've ever seen that Formula One or whoever put that statement out. And I'm not talking about Liberty Media, and I'm not talking about the teams. They have kept quiet. This is FOM, and I think honestly, It beggars belief because it makes us all look like fools. None of us believe that. Bob's absolutely right. We love this sport. We love everything about it. And those statements don't ring true. Because if they did ring true, what are Haas doing there? They came fifth in their second season. And sure, they've had a bad time of it. But the customer teams have always gone, well, they may as well have written a statement that says, oh, dear Andretti, we don't really like you, but we like GM. So could we just hold this until 28 and then we'll have GM in Formula One? That's really what they're saying.
And Bob, when you talk about my visceral reaction, because this all happened, it all came out at the same time. And when I read that they kept calling Andretti novice, they said it 3 times. And I was like, what are you talking about? I mean, if you just look at just look in the last year. Indy 500 win, the Formula E championship. They were on the podium a couple of weeks ago at Daytona. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on. And they're calling them a novice, and GM, they're calling GM a novice as well.
Here's the kicker. While the Andretti name carries some recognition for Formula One fans, our research, which I would really like to see, indicates that F1 would bring more value to the Andretti brand rather than the other way around, which is total bullshit from the first capital letter to the period at the end of the sentence. Anybody?
And you tell me, okay, if that's the value. Sorry, Bob. I don't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. You're not.
But if that's the value comment, you tell me how much Haas have brought and how much Alpine are currently bringing and how much Stake are currently bringing and how much Alfa Romeo in their time in Formula One brought. Marussia, HRT, back and back and back. Virgin. I'm sorry. You guys are rewriting the history books here.
Yeah. And think of the other 3 teams that got turned down with Andretti. You had Carlin, who at least have some claim to being a racing operation, although nothing on the scale of Formula One. Formula Equal, which was politically correct in promising that their driver lineup would be male and female, and some other name that I can't even recall right now, never heard of.
Julian Villeneuve's manager.
Yeah, that was the Formula Equal. Yeah. Maybe we shouldn't.
High Tech also had a bid.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, none of them approximate what Andretti Global or all the Andretti companies have done in racing around the world for decades now. Not just, these are not Johnny's come lately. And this idea that, well, a lot of people don't know who Andretti is. What? If you don't know the Andretti name, you are not a fan. That's all there is to it. And stick around and we'll tell you who they are.
And I honestly feel that this is a classic case of the tail wagging the dog, because for the simple reason, for a sport this big, and, Liberty Media have just been announced as the biggest sports franchise in the world, and they must be embarrassed by this, because, hang on a minute, am I right in saying that 4 years ago, the last Concord Agreement was agreed, and in that Concord Agreement, it was sown the seed that the full number of teams allowed in Formula One is 13. There are currently 10. They will take bids from other teams. 4 bids came in. Only 1 made it. And then to turn that bid down after all those years, what's the point, guys? Just say we are a closed shop of 10 teams. That's it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it boils down to, Jonathan, because no one could have lived up to what they've put out, what they've decided. Not that what they put out, because the request they put out, Andretti ticked every box and then some. I just don't think, I mean, I don't know, unless it's a European thing, had Porsche come in with, I don't know. I just don't know. And I can't even imagine it, because it was, I mean, I feel like there's something we're missing. Is there something going on that we don't know about? What?
The cynic in me says that Ford don't want GM there, because obviously Ford are coming in, and the other team that don't want them there is Ferrari.
And how about every other team on the grid right now? Because if Andretti comes in, I don't expect them to win the championship the year they start, right? But let's say they come in and with the Andretti attitude, because we've seen it in person. We've seen the way Michael and Mario are. They do not ever want to lose, ever. And coming in with the backing of the dollars that they can bring from, first of all, let's start with General Motors. I think they could easily be competitive near the top before too long, way faster than Haas did. Go ahead.
I'm waiting in line.
Well, I was just going to say that statement about being competitive. I was like, okay, so last year no one was competitive with Red Bull.
Yeah, there were 9 teams that couldn't compete with last year's champion.
Zero teams were competitive, and that I was just, that's absurd with that statement.
And this business about it puts too much of a burden on the organizers of the various races. Okay, well, let's say we take $5 million off the price of bringing the circus to town for all of these, race organizers out there who were already spending, $50 million to bring Formula One to their towns, plus all of the other associated work they have to do to get ready for a Formula One Grand Prix. And then let's pass that on to the organizers. Zandvoort's already said they're going to add garages. Jonathan and I were at Las Vegas. Okay, what do you say we take that garage away from the Paddock Club open bar at the far end of the pit lane? They don't need that. There's one garage. How about the FIA gets out of the garage and has an office right in the paddock? There's another garage.
Or take Brad Pitt's garage.
Oh, yeah, Brad Pitt's okay.
Garage. Sorry, Hollywood, get out of here. We got a sport to run. A sport where success is not guaranteed. Competitiveness is not guaranteed. It's a challenge. It's an effort. And you can't deny somebody the opportunity, all things being equal, if they look like the real deal. And anybody who wants to argue with me about whether Andretti Global is the real deal or not, take a number.
Me too. What I loved is the backlash was not just American. It was across the board. Yeah. I looked at every poll. I put up a Twitter poll, and Casey's putting that up on YouTube and Facebook right now. And it showed 77%. And that's with, we had about 300 organic votes. I boosted it, and I only targeted people who follow F1 fans, F1 teams, excuse me. So they were 100% F1 fans. It was 77% of the people that voted thought F1 was wrong in denying Andretti the entry. And this was a global. I saw polls from the race. I saw polls from, I can't remember all the different outlets, but mine was one of the lowest at 77%. Yeah. And they were, some of them were as high as 90% because the fans want this. And this just seems so crazy to me. The fans want it so bad.
Now, we need an important distinction here. They're going to say, well, the fans don't know anything about how the business is run. They don't understand the challenges we face as an organization. No, they just know that the idea of the Andretti name competing in the world's premier form of motorsport makes all the sense in the world, and they want to see that happen. And that's the number that FOM has to be looking at. Not so much, how much more is Mercedes going to get out of the prize pool? It should be, how can we make the championship bigger and better and attract more fans? And I don't see how turning down an Andretti effort helps that cause.
Jonathan?
John, I gotta make a point also about the USA and how it's taken the wind out of the sails of all the efforts of Cota and Bobby Epstein, all the efforts of Stephen Ross and Miami, all the efforts of Las Vegas and the success they brought, given that there was cynical before it happened. I feel for the young drivers. Colton Herta will never get a shot, nor will Kirkwood, nor will Bryce Aaron, who's just arrived here in New Zealand as an Andretti Global driver in a junior formula, and all of the and frankly, I feel for Bob and myself. We, since the early 90s, banging the drum for Formula One in America. Me for ABC and ESPN, obviously Bob from many other networks, more than I have, and we've been doing it ourselves in Speed City, and I'm not looking for us to get any credit, but you had such great impetus before this announcement for Formula One in America, and it's just got blown away.
Jonathan, I want to follow that with the backlash was, I saw people saying, I am canceling my F1 TV. I'm not buying my tickets. In fact, I read one that said, I'm canceling my tickets to Coda. And actually, I reached out to Bobby Epstein, and he didn't have a comment at this time. I didn't tell him what I was wanted him to talk about, but that was what I wanted to say and say this could be hurting ticket sales, But I think I saw a lot of people, not just a few, a lot of people saying things like that. Now, look, we all can react emotionally in the moment, but I think there will be backlash. I think you're right, Jonathan. And I mean, I seriously was like, I don't care what I say about this, and I don't care if it makes someone mad and we lose our gig as Speed City. I was like, I don't care because this is ridiculous to me. But, that's how badly it felt to me.
That same attitude among the journalists who offered an opinion, to my knowledge, was unanimous that this is crazy.
Yep.
What a crazy idea that they would turn away a totally plausible, well-advanced effort. And the Andretti boys said, we're going to keep working. We're going to put this car through the wind tunnel, and we're going to improve the next car and the next one after that. To say that the Andretti organization underestimates the challenge of getting involved in Formula One just turns my stomach. I mean, come on, folks. And I was speaking with a journalist the other day about another project, and he said it was his understanding that Andretti committed to entries in Formula 2 and Formula 3 to help bring new talent up. And General Motors committed to a $100 million ad buy to promote the championship and Andretti's participation in it. I mean,
something's missing here. I
agree.
What's missing?
I don't know. Sustainability. They had to prove their sustainability and what they were going to do and all the rest of it. You're right. I smell a rat here. It's not right. It really isn't. It doesn't make any sense for this to have happened. And let me put a positive light on it. I hope Michael Andretti just gets the bit between his teeth. He's got 125 people working on this project. And as Bob said, they were in the wind tunnel. So he's spent millions already on this project. And I hope he visits every Formula One team currently and says, would you like to work on our 2028 GM project? And we'll come in and we'll blow the doors off, as Michael Caine would say, because I want, I just want that dogged determination of this rejection to be turned around.
Jonathan, I do hope Andretti lets one person go, maybe admonishes one person, and that's the IT person, because of the spam folder situation. Can you believe? Can you believe that a $1 billion deal that somebody, not Domenicali, didn't send an email to Michael? It was some administrative person sending an email and then didn't follow up when someone didn't respond. I smell a rat. When you're doing a huge deal, you don't send an email and go, well, I guess they don't want to do this deal because they never responded to my email. That is just absurd. I don't get it.
It is. I've had invoices get lost to clients all the time, and I'll say, check your junk folder, check your junk folder. Oh, there it is. Then that assumes that it was in the junk folder, that it was actually sent. That I wouldn't be surprised if they had the wrong email address, for crying out loud. I mean, it's crazy, yes. And why doesn't somebody pick up the phone and say, Michael, we got to talk. Where can we meet? That kind of thing. I mean, this is... How do you close it?
How many races has Michael been to in the last 2 years? He's hardly inaccessible.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, you said Michael gets a bit between his teeth. I don't think that's a problem. I think you're going to have to rein him in to continue the theme there, because they said it, the Andretti statement, they said, we're not done and we're not stepping down. And so if we just had a lawyer, Bob has a law degree. Bob, what can they do from a legal? I know I don't really mean, because I know you're not in the middle of that, but what could they possibly do? I don't know.
First of all, just from a philosophical point of view, you don't want to do that, because you don't want to, sue your way into a series where you're going to be competing against all the people that you've sued. I mean, that doesn't work. They've got to negotiate this out. I'm spending Michael's money, but I would go ahead, develop the project as you've said you will, go out there and test your ass off. And when anybody says, oh, no, we don't allow testing in Formula One, you say, I'm not in Formula One. I'd like to be, and I've got a car that's breaking records everywhere, assuming that happens. So what do you say, pal? And then they'll say, well, you're too competitive. We can't possibly have you.
Bob, I agree. I don't want, and I don't think that's the right move, but I think that you could always say in the background, of any conversation like this, well, let me run this by the lawyers, because I think there's, there could be a case. But I want to go to some of the.
I understand. Yeah, but it's going to have to go to an international court of, something or other. There won't be a jury. It'll be looking at the FOM rules. It's going to be too vague. We said we didn't think they were good enough. We think we are good enough. Unless you got a smoking gun, a nice set of emails where somebody says, I don't care how good Andretti is or how far advanced their program is, we're not going to let those sons of bitches into our series, for crying out loud. Barring that, it would be a tough slog.
All right. Well, I'm going to. Bob, I think Casey's used up all the dump for local radio, so but I do want to go to a couple of comments here because, by the way, David Lawrence says, guys, can we do another hour of this? This is awesome. And I wanted to, David. I actually almost planned it tonight because I knew this was going to happen, but
it's still a midweek show.
Yeah.
We'll have a Formula One season preview show, and we'll get it in there.
There's a couple of comments I got to get to here. David, again, says Andretti would have easily finished sixth in year one. Kevin Kelly says boycott F1. Dixon Smith, I canceled my F1 TV subscription. They want American money, but won't truly accept Americans as a competitive force that wants to win titles. I'm going to use that money to attend an IndyCar race. I saw a huge IndyCar uptake on this. Somebody else says, Ali says, bring Mario back as the sheriff of Coda and have a big rally for the Andrettis. Brandon says it was a very bad move. We have 3 races, tickets and tickets are not cheap. Inflation is high. Pretty easy combo for someone to say, nah, I'll pass. We need to see more than one American team in F1. And that leads me to the next thing is that we have an American team in Haas, but did you guys see the backlash against Haas? Because the first few hours it was just tell Haas to sell to Andretti. And I saw that over and over, because it feels, the theme was Gene doesn't care. He's not investing in the team, that because that's what Gunther basically said. And they said, just get Gene to sell the team to the Andrettis and solve all of these problems.
You know what? I'll make a statement, and I've said it before. He should buy Alpine.
Yeah, you have said that one.
And the reason being, they now have a multitude of American and celebrity investors, from Rory McIlroy to heavyweight champion boxers to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney, etc. They had their deal for the engine with Renault anyway. They have a relationship there. We know that there was a price put on Alpine's head, which was 1.2 billion when it was rumored. I don't believe that Haas want to sell simply because they've had 10 years of hard luck and a lot of loss of money. And I think Gene is just as dogged as anybody else to keep the franchise that now is worth over $1 billion, regardless of whether you finish first or 10th. And I don't think, and as we've heard in the press from Andretti, that he's been given a solid no every time he's asked. So I think he should be looking at perhaps one of those other teams with the same plan in mind to replace that Renault engine with GM in 28.
Yeah, and Andy P jumps on and says that same group of investors wanted to, but Haas to buy Haas, wanted to buy Haas, but Gene apparently said no. Yeah, Gene apparently has said no multiple times. I mean, he's sitting on a now franchise that's worth, upwards of $1 billion. And I'm not saying that is the answer. I'm just saying that that Haas was taking a bunch of this backlash. Another comment from David Lawrence. He said, I'll remain an F1 fan and still want to attend an F1 race, but I will not go to a U.S. race because as an F1 fan, I feel the experience is not for me. The fan, I'll go to a European race. But if Andretti, David, I bet you, if Andretti were fielding a team, you'd be clamoring to buy tickets and raising the ticket prices. I just don't understand. I just think that, I said it the moment that it was announced. I said the pool, they said, because Toto and Christian came out and said, we don't want to dilute the pool. And I was thinking, what kind of money can Andretti bring to this thing that going to make the pool immediately bigger if you divide by 11? And I stick to that. I think that is a no-brainer. But I just looked at the clock. We're now down to about 90 seconds. Any final thoughts, Jonathan?
Yeah, I just want to know whose decision it really was. I've been saying this all along. It's not the decision of those teams that have been vociferous, like Toto and Gunter in his time. It's not their decision. They don't have a say in it. It's the FIA and Formula One management. And I know that Ben Suleiman has been positive. So who has stopped this from going through?
I know. Yeah. Well, we're down to a minute. Hey, I have one quick comment that I want to say to everybody, especially I'm going to put it out on YouTube maybe as a poll, but we're thinking about moving our show to 5 o'clock Central Time, so 2 hours earlier than we have been. And I wanted to get y'all's take on that. So if you guys have an opinion on that, drop it in the comments. And if you watch this afterwards, not live, drop it in the comments. Or send an email to info@speedcitybroadcast.com. But Bob, any final thoughts? You got 10 seconds. You're on mute, by the way. Now you have 5 seconds.
Okay. Looking forward to Bahrain.
Yeah.
We're still going to cover F1.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
we are.
Me too.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We appreciate you listening to our rants, and we'll talk to you next Sunday night.